we're talking about family blessing, and that's key too, because when people see the power of blessing, it's not necessarily we're talking about prosperity where people go.
Right.
We're talking about the power of blessing and speaking blessing over a person's life. Family blessing, ma and pa over a son or a daughter. And the follow through to that is not only do these people know who they are, your children know who they are in Christ, but they actually begin to fulfill God's plan and purpose in their lives. And so, Carol, we want to get you in a second, but Terry, again, let me kind of go back
what
to this
about this person without the blessing? Right. Well, okay, so you look at a Jewish family, and every week the parents in an Orthodox Jewish home will take, time out, family meal, and they speak a personal blessing. And so by the time a Jewish child... Weekly. By the time an Orthodox Jewish child is 20 years old, 1,000 times their parents have laid their hands on them and looked them in the eyes and spoken a blessing and said, you will prosper, and they will speak to them these kind words and individual words. So I ask people in my seminars, how many have had that? Obviously, no one's ever said 1,000. I've said, how many have had it even once? Usually 10% of the families I deal with, only 10% have had parents actually deliberately, intentionally speak or write blessings to them. So I'm sure many people are out there saying, what do I do? The first thing we do is get in touch with the lies you are believing. How has this impacted my life? And there's two components to emotional health in this area. And the first is learning to give and receive forgiveness. You've got to be willing to forgive. Get in touch with the lie. Write down how this has damaged your life and choose to forgive. Start the process with your will. It can take a long time. Start that. Find someone in your life. Pray and ask for God to send someone who has the ability and the relationship with you to say, I see who you really are. God will bring those people to you. He will.
Now, what about parents? Should you go to parents or?
That depends on your relationship. Many people have parents who are now seniors or whatever, and they're still not interested. Let me give you a quick example here. Okay, I grew up in a fairly loving home. My parents weren't confessing Christians, nice people. But when I was in my early 20s, my dad died. So the adult blessing I didn't get. My dad left suddenly, and if he had stayed around, he wouldn't have known how to bless me because he wasn't a believer. God had called me into the ministry. I quit my computer career to go in the ministry. That happened 3 weeks before my dad died. So if he had known about this sudden career change in my life, he couldn't have blessed me. So my dad loved me, but he did not know. He lived 55 years in this earth, and not for one day did he know who I really am and why God put me on this earth. So he wasn't able to deliver that blessing. It's heaven's truth from heaven's warehouse down into our soul. So God brought along a friend who gave me that missed blessing. Another family member stood in the place for my dad once, and yes, God actually visited me and spoke to me once very powerfully. So other family members, friends, anyone God will pick, like I say, everyone has a Melchizedek out there waiting. And sometimes God can speak to us directly, as our first caller said.